Great moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here tonight, boys.
I'm talking about we're beaten.
We're not beaten.
I'm not beaten. We're in this game. Anybody here tired?
No.
Sonny, not tired. Holt?
I'm just warming up, Sheriff.
Connor?
I'm ready, John.
Bertie, you with us?
Yep.
Good. Because the Rangers are starting to breathe through their mouths. The strides are getting shorter. Do not give these guys too much respect. They didn't pull a dog sled, did they?
No.
Didn't skate the river, did they?
No.
This is our pond.
Now Cameron Hughes gets the ran over the line. Clean pass for Morrison across. The shot, they score! Ryan Winterton and the Firebirds take the lead. 6:08 to go in the first period. Logan Morrison right up the tape for Winterton. And Coachella Valley out in front for the first time in the series.
You know they just want you to bleed, right? I'm here to do whatever they need me to do. You know, if they need me to bleed, then I'll bleed for my team.
Let's go. Pretty boy. Let's go.
Introduce yourself.
Jim. My name's also Jim.
Problem solved.
Thanks, James.
Now, as far as serving the tendy goes, if they're shooting, you're getting your body in front of it. Everybody blocking shots. All you useless guys, blocking shots, bugging Appledorns. Now everybody knows the role. Eh, Sanguinet?
Everyone knows the role. Everyone does their job.
Yeah, so.
For Parsonen, McCormick tries to jam it loose in front, comes to Del Gaizo, pass broken up, John Hayden coming in shorthanded, looking for the hat trick, Hayden's in, he scores! John Hayden, a shorthanded goal, the hat trick for Haynes, 1:57 left in the second period, and it's 5-1 Coachella Valley.
I want to win that championship tonight, but I want to win it clean. Old-time hockey. Like when I got started, you know? Jeez, Toe Blake, Dick Clapper, Eddie Shore, those guys were the greats.
Reg is our coach.
Yeah, sure, old-time hockey. Like Eddie Shore.
Yeah. Coach, our line starts.
Sure.
You were born to be hockey players. Every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight. This is your time.
Greetings, friends and Firebirds fans, and welcome to the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Fire and Ice, the official podcast of your Coachella Valley Firebirds, two-time defending Western Conference champions of the American Hockey League. Coming to you from Palm Desert, California, a mere Nike Coco double pad slide away from the Birds' barn of Acrisure Arena. I'm your host, Judd Spicer. Along with this bi-monthly podcast endeavor, again, also have the privilege and the pleasure of serving as your Firebirds insider in this third season of CV Hockey. Those Firebirds insider articles may be found online, as with all things Firebirds, at cvfirebirds.com. That's your hockey home and hub for everything, including, but certainly not limited to, tickets, merchandise, roster, community information. Again, get it all online at cvfirebirds.com. Per the presenting sponsor of this endeavor, you know I love a good putt-to-puck segue. Make it a great day at Desert Willow Golf Resort. Get those tee times online for the Mountain View and or Firecliff courses. They got 36 holes over at Desert Willow, of course. Get those online at desertwillow.com. That putt-to-puck day, just a mere 3+ miles away from Acrisure Arena. Tee it up over at Desert Willow. and then skated on over to Acrisure Arena for an evening of Birds game. Day's getting a little bit longer now, making it easier to do so. Oh, by the way, when you're on desertwillow.com, be sure to also click over to the on-site and awesome Palm Desert Golf Academy for all your swing instruction and tutelage needs. All right, dudes, happy 2025 to friends and foes alike. First show of the new year, not alone on this episode of Fire and Ice, doing this for the first time this year. It's a media roundtable. I'm going to label it a mid-season media roundtable. Not technically at mid-season, 33 games in, but we're close enough. Joining me on the program will be Andrew John, our man Andrew John, reported on the Birds from the get. He does so for the Desert Sun newspaper. Also joining in this trifecta, this mind meld, Tim O'Brien. Tim now with many titles, almost too many to list, but we're going to try to do so. He's the lead NBC sports anchor. You can watch him on television, also see him at Acrisure Arena, not only as the in-arena host, but he is now the rinkside reporter, as all those games on NBC, or their NBC affiliates rather, are televised. All those Firebirds home games. Going to be joining with those two gents in a moment, talk about the season that has been thus far and the rest of the season to be, including but certainly not limited to the upcoming AHL All-Star Classic, of which we here in our Desert Sands will play host. It's coming up, tick-tock, February 2 and February 3. That is a Sunday, Monday, including the skills competition. That takes place the first day on Sunday the 2nd, followed by the All-Star Classic games on Monday, February 3. Tickets for the AHL's All-Star Classic, those two may be found online. Individual tickets now on sale, cvfirebirds.com. All right, before we get to the chat with the gents, the mid-season media roundtable, let's delve into this episode's Firebirds Freeze Frame segment, first one again of 2025. How are things going? Things are going pretty well. Been an interesting season, of course. Something I'm going to talk about with the gents here shortly. The ups and the downs. I'm not going to call it a Catherine wheel, but it has been a wheel that has spun, and one in which we are still, I think, trying to define the exact narrative of which way that wheel is going. But as for now, it's going pretty darn well. Birds 17-11, 1-4 on the season. That puts them in a virtual tie for third in the Pacific Division at 39 points. Also puts the Birds in a virtual tie for fourth in the entire Western Conference. Currently riding a 5-game point streak. Currently riding a 3-game win streak amid what is a 5-game homestand. As mentioned, 33 games in. We got 39 to go. Here are some of the upcoming here as we delve further into the month of January 2025. This Wednesday, January 8th, Birds are going to be hosting the Tucson Roadrunners. 7 p.m. puck drop. Wednesdays are, of course, $5 beer night. And for every $5 beer night, or every Wednesday game throughout the regular season, don't forget, yours truly giving away a pair of tickets. Actually, 3 pairs of tickets, 6 all told. Those can be found via the various social media sites on which I post. That's including the Firebirds fan pages on Facebook. There are a trio of them, all very strong, all very avid fans. Also do that via the Twitter account that is at Judd Spicer. This Saturday, January 11th, for the first time, going to be facing the Chicago Wolves. This Saturday, January 11th, 6 p.m. start. That is Pride Night, by the way. First ever meeting between the two franchises, between the two teams. Something of a home away series as the Birds will travel to Chicago, playing in the Windy City. That's not happening, however, until the close of March. Those games do represent a back-to-back. Chicago here again on Sunday, January 12th for a 3 p.m. start at Acrisure Arena. And then per this 5-game homestand, it's going to wrap up next Thursday, January 16th. That is a home game, 7 p.m. start against lowly Henderson. Maybe that was mean to say, but we kind of owe Henderson one at this point after they beat us to end our 10-game point streak at the onset of December. So we got to get those boys back, those Silver Knights. Don't like those helmets, by the way. I don't like those Henderson helmets. They look like Tron. They look like Tron to me. Anyway, per the Firebirds skaters and scorers and goaltenders, Ben Myers leading the team thus far into the year. Ben has played but 25 games because he's been recalled a couple times. the latter of which just occurred on January 4th. Ben has 21 points. That is 10 goals coupled with 11 assists. Tied for second, Yanni Newman, young Yanni Newman, 20 points on the year. Great goal, power play goal, game winner in overtime this Sunday past against San Diego. That was his 11th goal on the season, which represents a team high. He is coupling that with 9 assists thus far into the year. Jagger Firkus also with 20 points on the year, 7 goals coupled with 13 assists. Ryan Winterton right behind those boys with 19 points, 10 goals and 9 assists. John Hayden next on the list, 18 points thus far into the year, 7 goals and 11 assists. And defenseman Max Lajoie, 16 points on the year. He has 2 goals, matched with a team-high 14 assists. Per those minding the net for the Firebirds, Alistejka recently recalled. He is up with Seattle, recalled on 12/27. 6-9-3 in a Firebird sweater thus far into the year, with a 2.94 goals against, save percentage of .906. You're going to think I'm skipping somebody next, but just hold on for a moment. Jack LaFontaine, they call him the Laugher, played 2 games, including that most recent win against San Diego for the Birds this year. 1-0-1 in those 2 is Jack. 2.38 goals against, save percentage of .917. 2 games, 2 very solid games for Jack LaFontaine. We like him, former Gopher, by the way. Last but undoubtedly not least, we're going to talk about him more in the program. That's kind of why I was saving it. The Desert continues to go cuckoo for Coco. 20-year-old Nike Coco, the Finn, 10-2-1 on the year. He has won 4 of his past 5. He's allowed over 3 goals just twice thus far into the season. 2.59 goals against, save percentage of .905. He's just had a terrific year. Let's just say that for now. Again, we're going to say more about Nike Coco, but those 10 wins are tied for 7th in the entire American Hockey League, while that 2.59 goals against is good for a tie currently for 18th in the AHL. Again, just 20 years old, this kid. I think he's far exceeded expectations. More on Nike Coco soon. All right, friends, all that offered, all that prefaced. Let's get to this episode's Media Roundtable with Tim O'Brien and Andrew John. All right, Firebirds flock. As referenced earlier in the program, we bring back the Peanut Gallery for this episode of the Fire and Ice podcast, presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort, calling it the mid-season media roundtable. Oh, I know that the purists will observe that we're 33 games in, not technically 36 games in, but so be it. It's my show. We do it anyway. Brief introductions. I'm going to go with the shorter one first because the latter one requires like a scroll at this point. Our friend from the Desert Sun, reporting on the Firebirds since before the team's inception. Welcome back, Andrew John, to the Fire and Ice podcast. Hello, Andrew. He might be on mute.
Yeah.
There we go. Try it
great
again.
to be back. Thanks for having me, Jed.
No worries, dude. Good to have you back. From NBC Sports, where he is the lead anchor, here comes the scroll. He is also the in-arena host at Acrisure and the rinkside reporter. I think I screwed up, Tim O'Brien. I called you the rinkside supporter, I think at the beginning of this episode. But I figure that you're kind of both. Nonetheless, I don't know if there's any other titles that we need to add to that, Tim.
Yeah, no, I think that's good for now. I appreciate the invite. I was pumped, man. I love when you send this over and get a chance to be on the show. So looking forward to it.
Great to have you back as well, my friend. Let's go with this big and broad here, boys. I feel like personally, I'll say this, that the last 2 seasons have been like gift wrapped as far as the storytelling for us. Like we could not, in our wildest expectations, have asked for more gift wrap storytelling and storylines to be able to recount for readers and fans and listeners. This season, of course, is a different recipe, and I know that much of the time, I know I personally struggled to kind of put my finger on the exact pulse, the exact narrative of what we got going in season 3 of Firebirds hockey. Are we rebuilding? Are we reloading? Are we maybe going to shock the world with the roster that we have? Or are we perhaps now seeing what is like life in the AHL. We're like, hey, we're fighting to make the playoffs. Hopefully we win a series, maybe make a kind of a run. I don't know what you guys think. Tim, I'm going to go with you on this first. What's the narrative thus far of this third Firebird season?
Yeah, I think when you look at where they were the first 2 years, a little bit of spoiledness, a little bit of that silver spoon reference, right? But I think this year now you're seeing what it's like to be in the AHL. I don't know the exact number, guys, but I bet you the amount of transactions up and down already this year has to rival pretty close to what the total was all of last season. And that is the life of the American Hockey League. And what I love about Coach Laxdal, he's made no excuses whatsoever. I mean, look at last night. You had Sunday night's game. You had Charlie Wright and Ryan Jones both on the defense. So I mean, those are two guys that were thrown in last minute with Cale Fleury and Goose going up to Seattle. So there's depth within this organization. So I think the narrative, if you asked me maybe a month ago, I was like, I don't know what to expect. But last 4 or 5 games, I mean, this team they looked New Year's Eve, and then I had a chance to see them Saturday night in Ontario. They looked great. And then last night, again, the cycle is there, the speed is there, the checking, the forechecking is there, the stick placements. So they're starting to find their identity here, I think. And last night, Coach Laxdal said usually around Christmas time is when you see the rookies really take that next step. It starts to click. So I think we're in for a good January. I'm confident in it right now.
Andrew John, your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, this doesn't feel quite like a reload in the sense that the last 2 years we had a real veteran heavy roster. This is obviously a younger group. So I feel like the last couple of years they really went all in to put a winner on the ice. This year it does feel a little bit more like, well, we're developing the next generation of Kraken players, but we'd love to really be good as well. So I think we're kind of in the mix there. We're not really reloading, not really rebuilding. I think what you said about this being kind of the norm for the AHL, this really does feel like that. It feels like you've got a mix of potential National Hockey League players, but you also have, just some American Hockey League veterans and kind of, a team that is very capable and I think can certainly do well this year. But we're still trying to figure out how good this team can be because we really just don't know yet.
Tim referenced the transactions. We're going to get to the personnel shortly. I think we can also include the injuries in that list, that some of which have been lengthy. I think part of the struggle to discern the narrative of this year here at the midway point, just kind of go through some of these flows of the schedule. And it's kind of been like each time we start to have some earnest belief that this team is going to make a championship run, and the rug's been kind of pulled out. And some of that is because of the personnel comings and goings. But just look at a couple of these flows throughout the first half of the season, fellas. I mean, we had the 10-game point streak in late November. And yeah, there were a number of shootout losses or overtime losses, but points nonetheless. That was unceremoniously concluded when we lost at home to the crummy Henderson team and their awful Tron helmets. We then proceeded to lose 3 straight to San Jose in early December, although one of those was by a shootout. And then this team showed us something else. They beat Calgary at home in back-to-back, Calgary with the best record in the league. And then that followed by 3 straight losses to San Jose and Ontario cumulatively. Now here we are at the onset of the year with points in 5 straight games and 3 straight wins. So some of that, the goings on, the back and forth with the schedule, I think has contributed to trying to put the finger on the pulse of this season exactly. Going back to the players, and we'll talk about them more specifically, and if anything particular along these transactions or injuries jumps out to you guys, I'm going to ask you that as well. Tim referenced Cale Fleury, Gustav Olsson. They were just recalled. Ben Myers, our leading scorer, he was recalled last week. That happened for the second time. Max McCormick missed like 16 games. Cale Fleury, when he was here, he missed some games. Jacob Melanson has been out since early November. And then Edward Chalet, he, of course, was just playing in the juniors where he availed himself very, very well. 7 games, 6 goals. The Czech Republic got the bronze for the second consecutive time. He had 13 points in his 23 games at Edward Saleh, so we lost his services. Now he'll be coming back. Among those transactions or the injuries, is there one that sticks out to you guys most as really palpable to how this team has performed? Tim, I'll go back to you.
Yeah, I think our buddy Scott Strandy of Pro Hockey West last night mentioned Max McCormick.
Nice plug.
It's not. It's no secret, right, that Max was out. He comes back, and they've won the 3 in a row now that he's been back. He just has that net front presence. He's physical. He's the leader in the room. So I think that I'm looking at it now. He's only played 17 games this year. So out of what, 33. So
yeah,
they got to find that rhythm there a little bit. And Ben Myers, that's talk about finding somebody out there that that can play the game and play the style here. And it's the second time, I think, maybe in the last month and a half he's been called up, or last even 4 weeks. So that's rough. And I think the Chalet move, we got to watch. Coach Laxdal mentioned Sunday night that they're going to monitor his playing time here, Judd, down the stretch. So I don't know if, he's only 19, so we won't see him Wednesday probably. I don't know if I didn't elaborate, but I don't know if that means maybe does he get every third, fourth game a healthy scratch? I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I think that's a big thing, man. That's one of those guys I think you want in the lineup, right? But at the end of the day, he's 19 and it is the AHL, so be careful.
Andrew, John, your thoughts on the transactions, the injuries, the comings and the goings, anyone in particular? Perhaps it's also Max McCormick. Perhaps it's somebody else that sticks out to you most. Andrew's being polite. He's still on the mute. You're being nice. You're being nice, Andrew.
I didn't realize, I guess, just how much the team would miss McCormick until we saw him return these last 3 games, and the team has really come to life. It's could be a coincidence that it's right around that, January 1st time that Tim alluded to before, where the rookies start to figure it out, as Coach Lax mentioned. But, this team really has played well in these last few games. Last night, Sunday night, it wasn't really a close game until the very final minutes when San Diego made a push. Of course, San Diego's not a real formidable team, but they've been competitive against some very good teams in the division this year. So I think that, Max, obviously, that not having him, that was a big deal. I think one other thing that's been really interesting is we've seen, Ben Myers was the guy when Max was injured. Not having him in the lineup, as we mentioned, has been a challenge. And so I think when you get those two guys back on the ice together, then I think you've got some really good leadership on the ice that they've just been inconsistent with throughout the course of the season.
Yeah. One other interjection along these lines. Haven't talked about it enough maybe on this program, although we have all asked Derek Laxdal about it at some point. I think maybe even more so in recent weeks when there were some struggles on the power plays. They did get a power play goal against San Diego. I believe that was the Yanni Newman game winner. Now up to 15.7%, and that's kind of an oxymoron to say up to 15.7%. That is 12th in the Western Conference, 24th in the American Hockey League. And I felt that one of the most poignant things that Derek Laxdal told us in the post-game press conferences, thus far into the year, he kind of threw his hands up when they were down to like 12 or 13% success on the power play a few weeks ago. And he's like, look, we don't have an Andrew Podorowski on our team. Like, this was after we played San Jose. He's like, look at the artistry of what that guy can do, how he can control the puck, how he can control the spacing and the tempo of the power play. He also referenced a guy he coached with the Texas Stars, Minneapolis guy, Brooklyn Park specifically, Travis Marin, is a guy that I think he had over like 400 assists in the AHL, guy that Laxdal had with Texas. Just that veteran presence. It's something that concerns me. We've seen it get a little better, but with all the comings and goings, I mean, those are kind of our key power play guys. And I just feel like if there's something that's going to catch up to us, or proven an eventual encumbrance to our success or playoff success is that power play. And we've got to just ultimately get that over 20%, and we've got to get the continuity of the personnel back. Guys are going to be able to have a little more success on that unit. I'm not sure what you guys have observed or what you think, or if that's something that you too think could be a real hurdle in seeing eventual playoff success for the Birds. Tim, I'll go back to you on the power play.
Yeah, I go back to what Lax said to you that night when he said that, you can go 20 or 10%, 12% on the power play. It's what you do on 5-on-5 if you can compete, which, yeah, that's true. And they're getting those contributions now 5-on-5. But look, special teams are such a big part of the playoffs, right? I don't know. You can find a team that was under 20% in the power play that made a good deep playoff run. So they're going to have to figure that out. I think moving forward, it's slowly coming together. But yeah, I mean, power play is such a niche part of the sport. It's rhythm. It's getting comfortable with your unit. You've got to know where the guys are going to be on the ice. And if they're moving these guys constantly around, it's going to be tough to see whether or not they can continue any sustainability and success. So it's going to be interesting. I think hopefully, you see some of these guys step up. I'm sure we'll talk here in a moment. Guys like the Wintertons and Logan Morrisons of the world, I think, need to really take that next step here in their AHL careers. But yeah, they've got to figure that out. It's going to be crucial for some sort of playoff run.
Andrew John, same question to you, sir.
Yeah, it was really great to see last night with Newman getting the power play goal in overtime. That was something that we've seen them struggle with time and again, as you mentioned. So that seemed really significant. Lax said that he thought that was pretty significant that they had, and the goal was only a minute into overtime. It was of course on a power play, so that made it a little easier. But the truth is that these guys, I don't worry so much about their PK. I worry more about their PK than their power play, because they're also struggling with their PK, although they have been better in recent games. But on their power play, they have guys who we know can score. I mean, we know Max is a guy who is very successful in the power play situation. Yanni Newman is a guy in the slot who's very good. They have guys like Ryan Winterton who have shown that they're very capable power play players. So I don't worry about that so much. I think that as they get more familiar with each other as these guys, I think that'll come together. I think what's been equally worrisome, as I mentioned before, is their penalty kill. And I think that when it comes to playoff time is going to be equally important to power play, and whether they can improve that, especially with some of these blue liners going up and down to Seattle, as we've seen. They've also had Fleury that's been injured. That's also something to watch as well. See how well they do on the PK from here on out.
Yeah, and Andrew brings up a good point. That kill has been fine, not lighting the world on fire, basically charting in the middle of the pack as statistically as it goes as far as the metrics. Couple of quick hitters here, fellas, and then I'm going to reset. Tim, back to you. Name a player who has surprised you most thus far into the season and why that player has done so.
Surprised me most. I really enjoy watching Yanni Newman. Talk about how much he's gotten much bigger. He's much faster. I think it was during the training camp where he was in line. He was actually the fastest skater during the suicides. He was blowing everybody out of the water, and just his size alone. They made a comment Sunday night about Jagger Firkus. I don't know what it is about the Finns, but they just got bombs off their sticks. It was so funny. But
great quote.
Yeah, it was great, right? Even Jagger too, though. I mean, you notice when he shoots, the thing goes in. So he just needs to find his confidence a little bit. And those have been really two awesome guys to watch this season.
Andrew, your thoughts? Someone that's really surprised you 33 games into year 3?
Nikki Coco. He has been phenomenal as a 20-year-old rookie in the net. I think he's 10-1-0, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and for a guy, I mean, this is a team that isn't, as we mentioned, at the top of their division, yet he's got such a impressive record when he's in the net. And there's been so much instability around him, from guys getting injured, guys moving up to Seattle and back. and he's been real confident. That's been surprising. Now, we knew he was going to be a good player. The Kraken have high expectations for him. I've just been surprised how well he's and how solid and consistent and confident he's been really so early in his pro career. So I think that really high hopes for him, obviously. I think that if he can continue to play well down the stretch, that's just going to be a real bonus for the Firebirds.
Yeah, I've got to agree with Andrew on that. I mean, this is a 20-year-old guy playing in North America for the first time. Wasn't sure exactly when they were in the rookie camp and so forth where exactly he was going to play. And I remember asking goalie coach Colin Zulianello about this in recent years. Like we don't see in the NHL, we don't see many or any like 20-year-old goalies. And I'd asked him about that. You know, you see more success with guys that are like 37 in the NHL,
Yeah.
more so than like 21. And he just tried to explain to me like how much time and understanding and grooming it takes of that particular position, one of the toughest positions in all of sports. So to see Coco come in, go from the international ice to the different dimensions of our ice, and to kind of light this league on fire a little bit. I mean, those 10 wins that Andrew references, as I mentioned earlier in the show, tied for seventh in the entire league. And he's done this again, coming here for the first time. As Andrew also mentioned, like, you know, there's a lot of Stejka has gone up a few times, so he's come and gone. Inconsistent starts. So I think this guy has been a very, very pleasant surprise. Once the playoffs hit and we ultimately start talking about that, it'll be a fascinating discussion subject matter if he's ultimately our guy, if we're going to the playoffs with the 20-year-old netminder between the pipes. All right, another quick one for you here, fellas. Name a player, and we're not being mean here. We're gonna keep it nice. We're a nice program on Fire and Ice. Name a guy from whom you'd like to see a bit more as we head into the second half of the season. Back to you, Tim.
Logan Morrison. I need more out of him, and I know it's obviously not lack of effort, and it's not like you said. We're going to be nice here because these guys are busting their butts out there. But he was that rookie last year, right? He was that guy, a great first campaign, and I know the old sophomore slump. I don't know how true that is, but he needs to take a little more control on his lines, and he's been better over the last couple of games, but that's a guy that I need to see have a great second half here.
Yeah, Logan, I'm gonna agree with you on that one. 33 games, so he's played in every game. He's got 5 goals to show for it, and I think there's so much more to hockey, of course, than goals. And he's an interesting guy. I don't want to say case study, but he's another undrafted guy. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy, but his hockey IQ, I think, is just completely off the charts. And we saw so many signs of that last year. Be at the right place, right time, great feel of the game and flow and spacing. But it hasn't really clicked just yet for Logan thus far into the year. I trust the second half. We're going to see him put the puck in the back of the net a bit more than we have through these first 33 games. Andrew John, same question to you, man.
So for me, it's Ryan Winterton. And this comes from a place of admiration because Winterton's one of my favorite players on this team. And I just think his ceiling is so high as a player. I think he will be an NHL regular, in the future. And I think that, yeah, he's just such a talented guy. So the reason why I say him is because of that, because we know just how good he can be. And we saw in the Calder Cup finals where he just really came on and was one of the Firebirds. I'll say he was one of the Firebirds' 3 or 4 best players in that final series last year. So to play on that stage and play so well and be so instrumental in the success of the team in that series, I just think that I really was expecting him to really just kind of take over and be the guy. Now, he is still a young guy, but he's also had his share of stints in the NHL, and his confidence should really be brimming, I think. And maybe it is to some degree, but I just think that the production could be a little more. And I think that the Firebirds could really use him in a confident mindset in the second half where he is just taking over as one of the main offensive weapons. And we just haven't quite seen him tap into that in the way that we know he can.
Yeah, I think we're probably all in concurrence. I mean, Wentz has been good. He's got 19 points. He's got 10 goals to show for it. But when you come alive like he did last year as a young guy in the playoffs, and then you come back, you get the taste of the NHL. Basically, the expectation is to come here and dominate. Has he done that thus far into the year? No. Has he been good? Absolutely. But the expectations for him are very, very high. For my answer, and again, we're being nice. We're not being mean. Jagger Firkus, has the circus yet come to town? He did get his seventh goal of the season in that win over San Diego. However, I mean, I think previous to that, I think it was one goal in a 16 game stretch. We know that the WHL and coming out of the juniors, the numbers are going to be gaudy, where he had 75 goals last year. I agree with Tim with what he referenced before. A little more confidence in space, a little more confidence with the puck on his stick. We're still waiting for the circus to come to town. He's technically just 1 point behind our team lead, so he's tied for second with Yanni Newman. But I think we're still kind of waiting for that goal explosion from Jagger Firkus, something that I sense is also going to come in the second half of this Firebird season. Friends, you're tuning in to the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort, mid-season media roundtable, joined by Tim O'Brien and Andrew John. A couple more for you here, fellas. Again, kind of a big, broad one here. You guys noticing a different vibe here in year three? Something that it's tough to put the finger on the pulse of this. We had our Dan Bilesma time with Jessica Campbell. We had all our success. We have our banners hanging aloft in Acrisure Arena, our 2 trips versus Hershey to the Calder Cup finals. Now things are obviously different. Just catch a little breath here, have some perspective, but does it feel different to you guys here in year three of Firebird's history? Tim, I'll go back to you.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's safe to say it does. I think the fans are trying to find that next, maybe Potsy or Cam Hughes or Colin. They're looking for their next favorite player, somebody to kind of catch on the way Joey Decore did. And look, I think Max is still very much that guy. You heard on New Year's Eve when he came back, they announced him in the starting lineup. The place, you heard that extra roar, cheer for him. So I think he's still here, right? But they're looking for that next guy, and there's a little bit of uncertainty. I think it's so funny. This team's in fourth place, and it's like the fans this team is not as good. They're not playing good hockey. This and that. Like, oh my goodness, calm down. They're literally in fourth place, and 7 of the 10 teams make it. So give it some time and let it ride out a little bit. But yeah, sure. I don't know if I'd have to ask, get into the newsroom and look at some of the numbers, but I don't know if some of the snowbirds just aren't here yet either. There's just a weird flow to it a bit. The last few games, the attendance has been great, but hopefully that we've turned the corner here for the second half and everything will be better.
Yeah. I mean, before I go to Andrew, just interject briefly, like our first season and then as a baton pass into last season, like we couldn't have written that. There was like magic fairy dust that occurred over those 2 seasons. It was just all very natural and organic. And you can't recreate that through one player or through a marketing effort. It's just some of it, that magic has to happen naturally. I too, Tim, am curious to see now that we're in the peak season officially, if a lot of these snowbirds are going to come back, fill out some of these other seats, bring a little bit of that extra energy to Acrisure Arena, which we so enjoyed here at the end of 2024. Those were some great games, wins, points, loud games. Looking forward to seeing that as we turn the calendar. Andrew John, question to you, sir.
It does feel different. I will say that. I think that, to your point, the first, especially the first season, to go to the Calder Cup finals, Game 7, lose in overtime, you just can't script that. And we've talked a lot about how spoiled this fan base kind of is. And I know that what the Firebirds did, they really wanted to build a fan base. So they really brought in a lot of real quality veterans that would get the fans excited and put a winning product on the ice. And they did that. And the real only downside to that is that you can be in third or fourth place in the league in year 3 mid-season and it just doesn't quite still have that feel that we've seen the last couple of years when they went to the finals. But we see that there still is definitely some magic left. I know the building was sold out on the 28th of December for that teddy bear toss game. And there's still electricity there, and there's still such good players. And we know it's so evident through just a few months that Derek Laxdell is a great coach. And there's no reason to not be excited about this group. And I know that there is plenty of excitement among this fan base. So it just doesn't quite have the same feel, but there's still a lot left over from these last couple of seasons, some of the players and some of the excitement that we saw. And I think that what I really love to see the second half of the season is just a little bit more of the magic coming back with some of the big performances to really draw the fans back into Acrisure Arena that some of whom may have not gone to a game yet this year or maybe only been to one or two, but just really get some magic back in the building that we know is still there. Because I feel like there's, it just has been missing a little bit.
I think we're going to get it back. That's a great point, that some of those big games, those big wins, those theme night type performances, that's what's going to get the juice back in Acrisure Arena here as we enter the home stretch. Going to get out of here with this one here, boys, real quickly. We, of course, will be the home of the upcoming AHL All-Star Classic, February 2 and 3, Sunday, Monday. I know that I'll be doing an All-Star show, an All-Star article. Just curious what you guys, and I trust listeners might be curious, what you guys have planned for AHL All-Star Classic coverage. Tim, go back to you quickly.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I know, obviously, with the NBC outlet, we'll be doing our show. We'll be doing our whole sportscast around it, and then from what I understand, all of us that work Firebirds, home game staff, will be a part of it. So I'll have a chance to host the skills competition and the game itself. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
You're hosting the skills competition?
That is word on the street. So I haven't, it's not confirmed, but that is from what I understand.
Breaking news on the Fire and Ice podcast. Yeah. Andrew John, let's wrap this up with you. What do you personally and or the Desert Sun have covered for the AHL All-Star Classic coverage?
We are also planning some solid coverage on this. We know we will be, of course, at the game and the skills competition, or basically everything that is going to be at the arena we'll have coverage of. But in addition to that, we're also going to preview the events because this is the first time, of course, that we've had it out here, and there's fans who probably want to know what to expect. And so we hope that we can provide that to the fans that may want to go out and watch.
Look forward to watching, reading, listening to all the respective coverage that you guys produce. And let's hope, I think cumulatively and not secretly, let's get like at least 3 Firebirds, maybe 4 Firebirds between those 2 days. I want a nice, good, strong Birds contingent. I don't want like 2 Firebirds. Give me 4. Give me 4 Firebirds for the All-Star weekend. All right, I got my 2 cents in. Tim O'Brien, lead NBC sports reporter. He's the in-arena host at Acrisure and also the rinkside reporter for every home game, which is televised on NBC or their respective local affiliates. Andrew John, follow his coverage of the Coachella Valley Firebirds by buying a newspaper or following it online at thedesertsun.com. All right, boys, great to have the Peanut Gallery back. Appreciate your time. I will see you Thursday night. Pardon me, I will see you Wednesday night. That's a correction. January 8th, Wednesday night at home when we go beat the Tucson Roadrunners. Thanks for the time, boys.
Appreciate it, Judd. Thank you.
All right, Firebirds flock. It's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. So much appreciation and gratitude for your time, your interest, your ears, your ongoing support of this endeavor. Additional thanks, of course, go to this episode's guest, Tim O'Brien from NBC Palm Springs, also your in-arena host and your rinkside support. I wanted to say reporter, but I said supporter. But you know what? He's probably both. Just add more titles to the Tim list. And Andrew John, of course, reporting on the Firebirds since the inception of the team, even before it for that matter. Does so for the Desert Sun. You can buy a newspaper or find Andrew's articles at desertsun.com. Additional gratitude, of course, goes to the presenting sponsor of the Fire and Ice podcast, that be Desert Willow Golf Resort, right here in sunny Palm Desert, California. You know I love the good segue, a putt-to-puck day. Go tee it up at Desert Willow Golf Resort, whether that be the Mountain View course or the Fire Cliff, just about 3 miles away from the Birds' home ice of Acrisure Arena. Skate it on over after your round, birdies or bogeys, whatever you may have shot, and go enjoy yourself for a Birds game at Acrisure Arena. Again, great putt-to-puck day. And when you're poking around at desertwillow.com, be sure to investigate the awesome, excellent, and on-site Palm Desert Golf Academy. They're going to get you situated for all your tutelage and swing needs. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Birds playing well. The boys are playing well right now. Let's keep it going. We'll see you at Acrisure Arena this Thursday, January 8th, home set, 7 p.m. tilt against the Tucson Roadrunners. Until then, remember, as always, one valley, one team, rising together.